The old observatory stood silhouetted against the setting sun, its weathered dome gleaming like a copper penny. Raven Blackwood stared up at her inheritance, clutching the strange key her Aunt Thea had left her. At 17, she hadn't expected to become the owner of anything more significant than her aunt's collection of astronomy books. Yet here she was, sole heir to the Blackwood Observatory and whatever secrets it held. Ms. Blackwood? The lawyer, Mr. Harrison, cleared his throat behind her. There are some additional documents you need to review. Rather unusual ones, I must say. Raven nodded, following him up the winding path to the observatory's entrance. Her aunt had always been peculiar, brilliant but eccentric. As one of the world's leading astronomers, she'd spent decades studying the stars from this remote hilltop in Colorado. But in her final years, she'd become increasingly reclusive, speaking of discoveries that her colleagues dismissed as impossible. The heavy wooden door creaked open, revealing a dusty interior filled with astronomical equipment and star charts. But it was the steel door in the floor that caught Raven's attention, a modern anomaly among the classical instruments. Your aunt left specific instructions, Mr. Harrison said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. The basement facility can only be accessed by you, using both the key and your genetic signature. She was quite insistent about that. Raven's fingers traced the key's unusual patterns. It wasn't like any key she'd ever seen, more like a crystal with circuitry running through it. What exactly did Aunt Thea discover down there? I'm afraid I don't know. Mr. Harrison handed her a sealed envelope. But she left this for you. Her instructions were to read it only after you've seen what's below. Heart pounding, Raven approached the steel door. A small panel slid open, revealing a scanner. She pressed her palm against it, and the crystal key began to glow in her other hand. With a pneumatic hiss, the door swung open, revealing a spiral staircase descending into soft blue light. I'll wait here, Mr. Harrison said, looking uncomfortable. Take all the time you need. Raven descended slowly, her footsteps echoing in the circular shaft. The temperature dropped with each step, until her breath frosted in the air. At the bottom, she found herself in a vast circular chamber that looked nothing like a typical basement. The walls were lined with humming equipment she didn't recognize, covered in symbols that definitely weren't human in origin. But it was the center of the room that made her gasp. A massive crystalline pod, similar in material to her key but large enough to hold a person, stood on a raised platform. Its surface was frosted over, but she could make out a figure inside, humanoid, but definitely not human. Oh, Aunt Thea, Raven whispered, what did you find? A holographic display flickered to life beside the pod, showing her aunt's familiar face. Hello, my dear Raven. If you're seeing this, then I'm gone, and you've inherited quite the responsibility. Inside this stasis chamber is someone very important, a diplomatic envoy from a civilization far beyond our stars. Their ship was damaged by raiders while passing through our solar system. I couldn't let them die, but I also couldn't risk exposure to the wrong people. You're the only one I trust with this secret. The recording flickered. Their name is Vesper. They're healing, but the process is slow. The pod's power supply will fail within a week of you receiving this message. You'll need to decide whether to wake them or let them slip away. I know it's an enormous burden to place on you, but you have always seen the wonder in the stars, just like I did. Raven approached the pod, wiping away some of the frost. Through the crystal, she could see a face, elegant, with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Their features were almost human, but not quite, with patterns like constellations flowing beneath their skin. A series of lights began flashing on the pod's control panel. The power was already starting to fade. Raven had to make a choice, wake this alien diplomat and become part of something far bigger than herself, or walk away and let the universe remain a mystery. She thought about all the nights she'd spent with Aunt Thea, peering through telescopes and dreaming about what might be out there. Her aunt hadn't just left her an observatory, she'd left her a chance to prove that humanity was ready for the truth about its place in the cosmos. Raven opened the envelope Mr. Harrison had given her, finding technical instructions for operating the pod systems. With trembling fingers, she began entering the sequence that would start the awakening process. The crystal pod hummed to life, its frost melting away as the being inside stirred for the first time in what might have been years. As the pod's cover began to slide open, Raven squared her shoulders. "Welcome to Earth," she whispered, hoping she was ready for whatever came next. The figure's eyes opened, revealing irises that swirled like nebulae. They focused on Raven with an intensity that made her breath catch. When they spoke, their voice was like chimes in the wind, somehow both alien and beautiful. "You are not Thea," they said in perfect English, though their lips moved strangely around the words. "No," Raven replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I'm her niece, Raven. Aunt Thea, she's gone. But she trusted me to help you." The being, Vesper, studied her for a long moment before attempting to stand. Their legs buckled, weak from stasis, and Raven rushed forward to catch them. Their skin was cool to the touch and seemed to pulse with gentle light. "The Raiders," Vesper said urgently, gripping Raven's arms. "They will return. Earth must be warned." Before Raven could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. On the monitors above, strange signals appeared, signals that definitely weren't coming from any human source. Raven looked at the alien diplomat leaning against her, then at the mysterious equipment her aunt had left behind. Whatever was coming, she had a feeling her life would never be the same. The stars she'd spent so long dreaming about had finally answered back, and their message was a warning. Somewhere above, Mr. Harrison called down the stairs, "Ms. Blackwood? Is everything all right down there?" Raven exchanged looks with Vesper. How could she possibly explain what was happening? How could she tell him that her aunt's observatory was about to become humanity's first line of defense against an alien threat? "Everything's fine," she called back, even as more warning lights began to flash. "Just getting to know my inheritance. Breaking the ice." The next 48 hours in the Blackwood Observatory were a crash course in interstellar diplomacy. Raven had managed to convince Mr. Harrison that she needed time alone to process her inheritance, but she knew the excuse wouldn't hold forever. Not with an alien diplomat recovering in the basement and mysterious signals growing stronger by the day. "Your aunt's security systems are impressive," Vesper observed, studying the holographic displays that filled the underground laboratory. Their silvery skin rippled with patterns that seemed to reflect their thoughts, currently a mix of concern and curiosity. "She adapted our technology brilliantly." Raven looked up from the stack of notebooks she'd found hidden behind a panel. "That's the third time you've praised her engineering. Were you two working on something specific?" Vesper's skin patterns shifted to a deeper, more serious configuration. "We were preparing. The raiders who attacked my ship weren't random pirates. They're called the Harvesters, a species that believes they can achieve perfection by collecting genetic material from other races." "You mean they're coming here to experiment on humans?" Raven felt her stomach turn. "Not just humans." Vesper touched one of the displays, bringing up a map of what appeared to be hidden facilities across Earth. "Your planet has something unique, an incredible diversity of life. My people, the Luminari, have been secretly helping certain humans protect Earth's endangered species. Your aunt was one of our most valuable allies." The revelation hit Raven like a physical force. All those times Aunt Thea had disappeared on research expeditions, all the strange equipment she'd claimed was for atmospheric studies, she'd been part of an interstellar conservation effort. A series of chimes echoed through the facility. What Raven had learned was the Luminari equivalent of an alert. Vesper's skin patterns turned jagged with alarm. "The signals are changing. They're not just scanning anymore. They're coordinating." Raven rushed to the main console, her fingers flying over the crystalline controls as Vesper had taught her. The holographic display showed multiple objects decelerating from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. How long do we have? Days, perhaps. But we're not defenseless. Vesper moved to a sealed door Raven hadn't yet explored. Your aunt didn't just adapt our technology, she improved it. She theorized that Earth's unique electromagnetic field could be used to create a planetary shield. But she never had enough power to test it. And now? Now we have a luminary diplomat with access to emergency protocols. Vesper's skin glowed brighter. But I'll need your help. The system was designed to require both human and luminary input. Before Raven could respond, a loud knock echoed from above. Ms. Blackwood? Mr. Harrison's voice carried down the stairs. There are some government officials here. They're saying something about unusual energy readings. Raven and Vesper exchanged alarmed looks. We need more time, Vesper whispered. If the wrong people find this facility before we're ready. Raven squared her shoulders. Then we'll have to trust the right ones. She headed for the stairs, her mind racing. Stay here. I have an idea. Upstairs, she found Mr. Harrison nervously facing two people in dark suits, a tall woman with close-cropped gray hair and a younger man whose bearing screamed military despite his civilian clothes. Ms. Blackwood, the woman said, I'm Dr. Isabella Norton from the Department of Energy. We've detected some concerning readings from this location. Raven thought quickly. Aunt Thea had always said that sometimes the best defense was selective truth. You're right. There is something you need to see. But first, I need your credentials, your real ones. Not the Department of Energy cover. The agents exchanged surprised looks. The man's hand twitched toward what was probably a concealed weapon, but Dr. Norton held up a hand to stop him. You're very much like your aunt, she said, producing a different ID. This one bore an insignia Raven had seen in her aunt's notes, a specialized division dedicated to extraterrestrial research. You knew her, Raven realized. We suspected she had contact, but she never confirmed it. She did, however, tell us who to trust if anything happened to her. Dr. Norton's expression softened. She said to look for the girl who could see the light between the stars. It was a phrase Aunt Thea had often used when teaching Raven astronomy, looking not just at the bright points of light, but understanding the vast connections between them. Come with me, Raven said. But just you, Dr. Norton. What I'm about to show you changes everything. As they descended the stairs, Raven prayed she was making the right choice. Above them, Mr. Harrison nervously offered the other agent coffee, while below, humanity's first official first contact waited. Dr. Norton's breath caught as they entered the lab. Vesper stood in the center, their skin glowing with welcome. Doctor, they said formally, I believe it's time we discussed Earth's position in the galactic community. And its imminent defense. The next few hours were a blur of explanations, revelations, and plans. Dr. Norton, it turned out, had spent her career preparing for exactly this moment. Her division had suspected the existence of friendly aliens but had kept quiet to prevent panic. The harvesters have been advancing across this sector for decades, Norton explained, studying the tactical displays. We've detected their probes before but could never confirm their origin. Now you have more than confirmation, Vesper said. You have an ally. And a chance to protect not just humanity, but countless species across the galaxy. As the three of them worked to coordinate Earth's defenses, Raven felt a strange sense of peace. The universe had just become infinitely more complex and dangerous, yet somehow it all felt right. This was her inheritance, not just an observatory or alien technology, but a chance to bridge two worlds. The question was, would they have enough time to prepare before the harvesters arrived? And would Earth's people be ready for the truth about their place in the cosmos? Above them, the stars continued their ancient dance, unaware that their light now shone on a planet on the brink of transformation. In the depths of the Blackwood Observatory, humanity's future was being rewritten, one revelation at a time. Guardians of the Stars. The Blackwood Observatory had transformed into a command center in just 3 days. Dr. Norton's team had brought in equipment that integrated seamlessly with the alien technology, while Vesper worked tirelessly to establish contact with other hidden Luminari allies across Earth. Raven sat at the main console, analyzing data streams from the upgraded sensor array. Her fingers traced patterns on the crystalline interface as naturally as if she'd been doing it her whole life. The Harvester fleet is maintaining position just beyond Mars' orbit, she reported. 17 ships, including what Vesper identifies as 3 genetic processing cruisers. They're being cautious, Vesper observed, their skin rippling with tactical calculations. They don't know we detected them. More importantly, they don't know about your aunt's shield technology. Dr. Norton looked up from her tablet. Speaking of which, the power grid modifications are complete. We can channel energy from 6 major stations without raising suspicion. But we'll only get one shot at this. Then we'd better make it count. Raven pulled up her aunt's final project designs. The shield won't just block their ships, it'll use Earth's magnetic field to create a resonance wave. According to these calculations, it should disable their harvesting equipment without destroying their vessels. Elegant, Vesper said, their skin glowing with admiration. Your aunt understood that the goal wasn't to start a war, but to prove Earth was too costly a target. A young lieutenant burst into the room. Dr. Norton. We're picking up transmissions from the Harvester fleet. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The air filled with a harsh, grating sound that made Raven's teeth ache. Vesper's skin paled. They're not just broadcasting, they said grimly. They're awakening their sleeper agents. Sleeper agents? Raven felt her blood run cold. Synthetic biological constructs, left behind by previous scouting missions. They've been dormant, disguised as regular humans. Vesper's patterns shifted to warning colors. They'll try to disable any defense systems before the main fleet arrives. Dr. Norton was already on her secure phone. This is Norton. Implementation of Protocol Starcatcher begins now. All sites on high alert. She turned to Raven and Vesper. We've identified 3 probable sleeper agents in positions close to our power stations. Teams are moving to intercept, but we need to accelerate our timeline. The shield isn't ready, Raven protested. We haven't finished calibrating the resonance frequencies. Then we work faster. Vesper moved to join her at the console. Your aunt left us everything we need. We just have to trust her calculations. Over the next hours, Raven's world narrowed to streams of data and complex equations. She and Vesper worked in perfect synchronization, their movements choreographed like an elaborate dance. Dr. Norton's reports became background noise, 2 sleeper agents captured, 1 still at large, power stations securing backup generators. Wait, Raven said suddenly, spotting a pattern in her aunt's notes. Look at this section about harmonics. She wasn't just trying to disable their ships, she was trying to communicate with them. Vesper's skin swirled with revelation. Of course. The resonance wave would match the frequency of their neural networks. We could potentially broadcast directly into their minds. But what would we say? Dr. Norton asked. Before anyone could answer, the facility's lights flickered. Emergency alarms blared. The last sleeper agent, Vesper said urgently. They've found the main power station. Raven. Dr. Norton's voice was steel. How close are you to completing the shield calculations? Minutes away, but without full power dash. You'll have power. Dr. Norton checked her sidearm. Lieutenant, with me. We'll handle the intruder. Raven, Vesper, be ready. They rushed out, leaving Raven and Vesper alone with the humming equipment and flashing warnings. We can't wait, Vesper said softly. The harvesters will detect the disturbance. They'll launch their attack early. Raven's mind raced. The shield wasn't ready, the power was compromised, and somewhere in the city, people were fighting battles they never knew existed until today. But then she remembered something Aunt Thea used to say, the universe doesn't wait until you're ready. It waits until you're necessary. We'll have to modify the plan, she said, pulling up new screens. Instead of a planetary shield, we'll create a focused beam. Target their command ship directly with the resonance wave. The power requirements would be lower, Vesper agreed, their skin brightening with hope. But we'd need perfect targeting. Even a slight miscalculation dash. Then we don't miscalculate. Raven's fingers flew over the controls. Help me encode a message into the resonance frequency. Something that will make them listen. As they worked, the facility shook with distant explosions. The battle for the power station had begun. Raven tried to focus on the equations, on the precise adjustments needed to turn her aunt's defensive shield into an interstellar communication device. Above them, hidden by the light of day, 17 ships waited to pass judgment on a world they saw only as a resource to be harvested. But Raven knew better. Earth wasn't just a target, it was a testament to the power of diversity, of adaptation, of life finding a way against impossible odds. That would be their message. The console chimed, indicating the calculations were complete. Now they just needed power, and faith that somewhere in the cold minds of the harvesters, there was still the capacity to understand. In the distance, thunder rolled, or perhaps it was an explosion. Raven and Vesper shared a look, their hopes and fears reflected in each other's eyes. The next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but the fate of two civilizations. And somewhere, Raven hoped, Aunt Thea was watching. The battle for tomorrow. The power station's emergency lights cast red shadows across Dr. Norton's face as she delivered the news through their secure channel. We've contained the sleeper agent, but the main generators are damaged. We're running on backups, and they won't last long. Raven checked their power levels, barely 30% of what they'd originally planned for. Outside, the sky had taken on a strange, shimmering quality as the harvester fleet moved closer, their massive ships now visible even in daylight. They're launching dropships, Vesper reported, their skin pulsing with urgent patterns. Standard harvesting protocol, they'll establish collection points in major population centers. How long? Raven asked, fingers hovering over the resonance controls. 20 minutes until the first touchdown. Less if they detect our preparations. Dr. Norton's voice crackled through the speakers. The other facilities are reporting similar power issues. The sleeper agents may have been contained, but they did their damage. Whatever you're going to do, it needs to happen now. Raven looked at the modified resonance beam calculations. They had one shot, minimal power, and billions of lives depending on their success. Vesper, help me encode the message. If we can't stop them with force, we'll have to make them understand. Working together, they began translating Earth's story into the neural frequency patterns the harvesters would understand. Not just facts and figures, but the essence of what made Earth unique, its endless cycle of evolution and adaptation, the delicate balance of its ecosystems, the way countless species had learned to coexist and thrive. Look, Vesper said suddenly, pointing to a new signal. More ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. But these energy signatures, they're luminari. 3 sleek vessels appeared on their screens, taking up defensive positions around Earth. A new voice filled their communications channel, speaking in the musical tones of the luminari language. Vesper's skin brightened with joy. The Council received my emergency signal, they explained to Raven. They're here to witness, to prove that Earth is under luminari protection. But they can't directly intervene without risking full-scale war. Then we stick to the plan. Raven began the power-up sequence. Dr. Norton, we need everything you've got. Route all remaining power to the observatory. Understood. Good luck, both of you. The facility hummed to life as power surged through systems designed by human and alien hands working together. On their screens, they could see the Harvester dropships entering the atmosphere, while their massive command ship moved into position above North America. "Ready for resonance beam," Raven announced. "Targeting their command ship." Message encoded, Vesper confirmed, their skin glowing with focused intensity. "Raven, whatever happens, your aunt would be proud." Raven allowed herself a small smile. "So would your people." She took a deep breath. Initiating transmission in 3, 2, 1. The observatory's dome split open, revealing a clear shot at the alien ships above. Energy coursed through the modified telescopes, now serving as transmission arrays. The resonance beam shot upward, invisible but powerful enough to make the air ripple. For a moment, nothing happened. The Harvester ships continued their advance, dropships descending like dark rain. Then, suddenly, the command ship's lights flickered. "They're receiving the transmission," Vesper reported, monitoring the feedback. "Neural patterns show signs of confusion. Understanding. They're experiencing Earth's story, feeling the interconnected web of life." The dropships froze in mid-descent. On their screens, they could see the Harvester command ship's energy patterns shifting, changing from aggressive red to uncertain purple. A new transmission cut through their speakers, harsh and mechanical, but understandable. "This world, it is not what we believed. The patterns here, they are familiar." Vesper's skin rippled with surprise. They're recognizing similarities between Earth's evolutionary patterns and their own ancient history. Before they became obsessed with genetic perfection. The Harvester ships began to retreat, dropships returning to their carriers. The command ship's final transmission came through clearly: "This world must continue its own path. We will mark it as forbidden to harvesting." Relief flooded through the facility. Dr. Norton's team cheered over the comms, while the Luminary ships transmitted their formal acknowledgement of the Harvester's declaration. But they weren't finished yet. As the Harvester fleet withdrew, their engines leaving trails of blue fire across the sky, Raven noticed something in the transmission data. "Vesper, look at these patterns." The resonance beam didn't just show them Earth's story. It connected them to it, Vesper finished, their skin showing patterns of wonder. "Your aunt's technology didn't just create a shield, it created a bridge." The Harvesters felt Earth's biosphere as if it were part of their own neural network. They couldn't harvest it any more than they could harvest themselves. Dr. Norton's voice came through, tired but triumphant. "The President's been briefed. The other world leaders will follow. I hope you're both ready for some very long debriefing sessions." Raven leaned back in her chair, exhausted but happy. Through the open dome, she could see the stars beginning to emerge as dusk fell. Somewhere up there, an ancient species was rethinking its path, transformed by the realization that true perfection lay not in harvesting diversity, but in protecting it. "What happens now?" she asked Vesper. Their skin shimmered with possibilities. Now Earth joins the galactic community. There will be challenges, of course. Some humans will resist, others will want to rush forward too quickly. But your aunt left us the tools we need, not just technology, but understanding. The ability to bridge differences and find common ground. Together, Raven said, reaching out to take their luminescent hand. Together, Vesper agreed, their skin glowing like starlight. Above them, the stars continued their eternal dance, but they no longer seemed distant or cold. They were full of life, of possibilities, of connections waiting to be discovered. And in a hidden observatory on a hillside in Colorado, two beings from different worlds had proved that the greatest power in the universe wasn't force or fear, but the ability to share understanding across the vast distances between stars. Legacy of Two Worlds. 6 months after the day Earth's skies filled with alien ships, the Blackwood Observatory hummed with a different kind of energy. Gone were the emergency equipment and military personnel, replaced by a steady stream of scientists, diplomats, and researchers from around the world, and beyond. Raven stood at her familiar spot by the main console, now upgraded with both Luminari and Earth technology, watching as a group of wide-eyed physics students filed out after their first orientation. Teaching the next generation of human-alien collaboration specialists hadn't been part of her original inheritance, but she'd discovered a talent for bridging worlds. "The Korean delegation has arrived," Vesper announced, gliding into the room. Their skin shimmered with formal patterns. What Raven had learned was the Luminari equivalent of diplomatic dress. "They're particularly interested in your aunt's research on combining Earth's electromagnetic field with Luminari crystal technology." "I'll meet them in the conference room," Raven said, gathering her tablets. "How are the negotiations going?" Vesper's skin rippled with cautious optimism. "The Galactic Council is impressed with how quickly humans have adapted to knowing they're not alone. Dr. Norton's handling of the public revelation was particularly praised. Starting with scientific cooperation before moving to cultural exchange has helped prevent panic." They walked together through the observatory's expanded facilities. What had once been a simple astronomical research station was now Earth's primary center for interstellar relations. The basement laboratory had grown into a sprawling complex of research facilities, meeting rooms, and cultural exchange centers. "Hard to believe it's only been 6 months, Raven mused, pausing to look at a newly installed memorial, a hologram showing her aunt working alongside the first Luminari visitors to Earth. "Sometimes I still expect to wake up and find this was all a dream." "You humans have an remarkable capacity for adaptation," Vesper observed. "Though I admit, some of the changes have surprised even me. I never expected the harvesters to become some of our strongest allies in genetic preservation." It was true. After their experience with the resonance beam, the harvester civilization had undergone a profound transformation. Their vast genetic databases and advanced biotechnology were now being used to help preserve and restore endangered species across the galaxy. They'd even established a research station in Earth orbit, working with human scientists to understand and protect the planet's biodiversity. "Ms. Blackwood?" A young assistant appeared, tablet in hand. "The UN Secretary-General is on the secure line. It's about the proposed Mars colonization project." "Tell her I'll call back in 20 minutes, Raven replied. "The Korean delegation takes priority." The assistant nodded and hurried off. "You've grown into this role," Vesper noted, their skin showing patterns of pride. "Your aunt would be amazed at what you've accomplished." Raven smiled, thinking of all the changes the past months had brought. The careful revelation of alien life to the public. The establishment of diplomatic relations with multiple civilizations. The beginning of controlled technology exchange programs. Earth was taking its first steps into a larger universe, and somehow she'd become one of the people helping to guide that journey. "We all had to grow," she said. "Humanity had to grow. We could have responded with fear when we learned we weren't alone. Instead, we chose understanding." They reached the conference room, but before going in, Vesper touched her arm. "There's something else. The Luminari Council has made a decision about your petition." Raven's heart skipped. Weeks ago, she'd submitted a proposal for a new kind of educational exchange, one that would send human students to study on Luminari worlds while bringing young Luminari to Earth. It was a bold plan, perhaps too bold for such early days of contact. "They approved it," Vesper said, their skin blazing with joy. "With some modifications, but the core idea remains. The first exchange will begin next year." Raven had to resist the urge to hug them right there. She'd learned that Luminari found public displays of emotion somewhat uncomfortable. Instead, she let her happiness show in her smile. "That's wonderful. We should celebrate later. Maybe star watching from the dome." "I'd like that," Vesper agreed. Their skin showed patterns that Raven had come to recognize as fondness. "Now, shall we meet with the Korean delegation? I believe they're eager to discuss combining their quantum computing research with Luminari crystal matrices." As they entered the conference room together, Raven felt a profound sense of rightness. Her aunt's legacy hadn't just been an observatory or alien technology, it had been a vision of what humanity could become when it reached for the stars with open hands instead of closed fists. The room filled with greetings in multiple languages, both human and alien. On screens around the walls, scientists from a dozen countries waited to join the discussion. Above them, through the observatory's dome, the afternoon sky was clear and blue, no longer a barrier, but a bridge to countless possibilities. Somewhere out there, other young people on other worlds were looking up at their own skies, wondering what lay beyond. Soon, thanks to the exchange program, they would meet, learn from each other, and create connections that would span light years. That, Raven realized, was the true inheritance she'd received that day 6 months ago, not just the key to a hidden facility or the friendship of an alien diplomat, but the chance to help write humanity's next chapter. A chapter that would be written not in isolation, but in collaboration with all the diverse species that called the galaxy home. As she began the meeting, Raven glanced at Vesper, whose skin shimmered with encouraging patterns. Together, they would continue building bridges between worlds, one connection at a time. The stars above were no longer distant lights, they were windows into new possibilities, new understandings, and new hopes for all species who dared to reach for them. The universe, it turned out, had been waiting not just for humanity to look up, but for humanity to reach out. And now that they had, the future stretched before them, as endless and bright as the stars themselves.